Happy Hump Day, everybody at Prime Sports World. Welcome back into another edition of our season preview series. Today, we are going to be breaking down the 2022 Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm, of course, your host, David. On point right there is David Henderson. Man, you might as well be like a secondary host at this point, man. You've been on so many episodes of the show, commenting and providing us with some useful insight on whatever we've been talking about in every single show. Yeah, we do appreciate your contributions to the show, man. Very, very, very much, man. For real.
Well, yeah, you know what? It's no problem, man. I love talking football, and how ironic is it that we have, two Davids on the show? I mean, that's the best. That is obviously the best name out of all guys. So I mean, come on now, man. I mean,
David is for sure the best name. And if you're looking for consistent content on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, Prime Sports World is a pretty good place to be. We get to go live basically every single day. We are now down to just 6 teams left, or 5 today, 5 teams left. That we got to get to before the season starts. So let's talk about Pittsburgh. Also, I'm going to drop the StreamYard link to the Prime Sports World main Facebook page. So if you want to join us in the conversation and talk Pittsburgh Steelers football, you're more than welcome to do so. But as I mentioned with every single show, please keep your comments PG. We do not want to get in trouble with Mark Zuckerberg. You know, he's like the tyrant of Facebook. But let's talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers. So Pittsburgh, what are we expecting out of Pittsburgh this year? The real changing of the guard for the first time ever. No longer is Big Ben going to be taking snaps under center. It's going to be either Mitchell Trubisky or a Kenny Pickett or Mason Rudolph. I doubt it'll be Mason Rudolph, but what are we expecting out of Pittsburgh this year?
I think with Pittsburgh, they're gonna have a rough time. I mean, usually Pittsburgh in that division is pretty. I don't want to say dominant in the division, but they've owned that division for quite a while. So you look at the overall landscape of the division: the Bengals, the Browns, the Steelers, and the Ravens. Right now, the Bengals are the best team in the division right now, I believe.
100%. I mean, as long as all the inconsistency, the uncertainty swells around Deshaun Watson, we don't really. Yeah, the Bengals are for sure the best team in this division.
And then right now you have either Cleveland or Pittsburgh. They're both in the same situation as far as quarterback situation. Cleveland, if they had a pretty good quarterback, I believe the Browns would be clear favorites to at least win, possibly try to win this division, or possibly maybe even get second place in the division. But right now, it's kind of a teeter. Not having that quarterback's gonna be tough for them. But I still think they're gonna manage to be second place in that division because they got a great running game, great defense. So Pittsburgh, they're gonna have a tough time this year. They're gonna have a real tough time. I think finding that quarterback situation, right now you're relying on Mason Rudolph. Mitch Trubisky is kind of becoming a journeyman now. I mean, Chicago basically said, "Oh, well, we're done with you. We don't believe that you're the guy." So, is Mitch gonna be able to bounce back and be the guy? Are they gonna actually have enough around him to make him the guy? Because I believe he wasn't a horrible quarterback, but at the same time, he did have a lot of faults.
Well, I don't think the coaching was absolutely excellent that he was dealing with while in Chicago, and he was never gonna overtake Josh Allen in Buffalo. But if he could learn any of the stuff they learned from Brian Daboll and translate that back to his current situation with Pittsburgh, let's move on. So I agree with you. I think it's gonna be a rough season for Pittsburgh. They have an offensive line that's still kind of in shambles that he didn't really address in the draft at all. It's something that's still going to need to be dealt with. And they have a defense that's aging. Like, they have a lot of aging players on their defensive side. Mika Fitzpatrick just got hurt. They don't expect that to affect the season, but it's something he's going to have to deal with and rehab as we go. They lost Joe Hayden, so we don't really know what the quarterback situation is going to be moving into next season. But yeah, I think Pittsburgh, if I look at them on paper, they might be the worst team in this division. Like, I think they're not as good as Baltimore. I don't think they're as good as Cleveland. I sure shit don't think they're as good as the Cincinnati Bengals.
So, I mean, isn't that going to be kind of irony for them? Steeler fans are so used to being on top, so used to being, the top team in the division, and now you're looking up, and you may be looking up at all 3 teams.
It'll be like if Aaron Rodgers ever retires from Green Bay, what you guys will have to deal with.
Oh yeah, you wish. You will wish that. Bear fans will keep praying to God. Hey, where were you during that Bears prediction?
I've been moving into a new apartment, so I've had my schedule's been like super erratic. But let's get into the storylines for Pittsburgh. I talked about this briefly in the intro. It's kind of an end of an era for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Big Ben has retired from the National Football League. So who is going to need to step up quarterback for the Steelers? Is it going to be Mitch, or are you expecting Kenny Pickett to get a bulk of the snaps this season? Or do you think the wild card is a Mason Rudolph, or even like a trade for like a Jimmy Garoppolo? Like, what do you expect to happen with the quarterback situation with the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Oh, man. It's tough. See, Mason Rudolph has, from what I've kind of paid attention from the outside looking in, Mason Rudolph's kind of been the guy who's been there and had the experience under center. You have Mitch coming in. Mitch doesn't really have a whole lot of experience with him. So I think, I hate to say that Mason Rudolph is the lead guy.
Oh, I totally disagree with you. Mason, they've seen enough of Mason Rudolph. They know he's not the guy.
Well, yeah, but who's gonna come in? Who's gonna come in with the experience Mason Rudolph has under the system?
I think they would rather roll the dice with somebody new than to keep rolling out Mason Rudolph. They've seen enough.
Oh, that's not Pittsburgh. That's not Pittsburgh's MO. Pittsburgh's MO is go with what they know. They've always been like that. I mean,
yeah, but I mean, what they knew was a Hall of Fame quarterback. Mason Rudolph's not a Hall of Famer. I don't know if that's breaking news for you or not. But.
Wait a minute, hold on a minute. But remember, this is also the franchise that held on Cordell/Stewart for a while and thought he was a quarterback too. So just remember that.
Yeah, but he was.
No. Remember, Pittsburgh has done that before. They've done this in the past. Even if a quarterback looks, I mean, for God's sake, in the 90s, they had Neil O'Donnell as their quarterback. Neil O'Donnell was trash, and they still held on to him and still had confidence in him. So I think Mason will lose the job. Unfortunately, he might be the front runner, but I think he'll end up losing the job. But I think Mason, due to experience, unfortunately, will be the lead. But
I will disagree with you. I would be absolutely shocked if Mason Rudolph takes even one snap this season. For real, no joke. Like I don't think they've seen enough of Mason Rudolph. I expect
you hate Mason Rudolph.
He's not good. He's not good. Like I have nothing against him personally. I'm sure he's a fine human being, but he's just not a good football player.
Oh yeah, you are not getting a Christmas card from Mason Rudolph. You are not getting those.
It's okay. I don't need a Christmas card from Mason Rudolph. I promise you, my friend. I'm good. But I think it's going to be. I think Mitchell Trubisky's going to start the season as the starter. I think when things go south, probably like around week 6 or 7 or 8, with the Mitchell Trubisky experience, I think it'll be Kenny Pickett playing snaps for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I do not think Mason Rudolph. He might not even make the final roster.
Yeah, I mean, the only why I didn't pick Mitch is because Mitch has kind of been that kind of guy where he's kind of jumped the gun back and forth. He was in Chicago. Yeah, he didn't really have a great system in Chicago. He went to Buffalo. He wasn't winning that job, like you said. Obviously, nobody's winning that job.
I mean, he started as a rookie. He played out his rookie contract in Chicago, and then he went to Buffalo. I mean, that's not really jumping around the league. Like it's not like Nick Foles, who's going to be on like his 6th team in like 7.
True, but they obviously didn't believe in Mitch Trubisky because he couldn't read freaking, he couldn't freaking read defenses. The guy was,
Well, I think it's just not worth it to re-sign him at a big number if you're Buffalo when you have all this other money tied into all your other places. But yeah, I think Mitchell Trubisky is going to be the guy who's going to need to step up because if Kenny Pickett's playing legitimate snaps for the Pittsburgh Steelers this season, that means their season hasn't gone well. And
what do you think? Do you think Mitch can hold a job? I mean, Mitch is kind of.
I mean that kind of ties into the second storyline. I mean, we were talking about Najee Harris here. Najee Harris had like 380 combined touches last season. Do you think?
Yeah.
And so I think the way you take pressure off of a quarterback that's A, not that good, and B, super inexperienced, is you run the ball a lot. But when Najee Harris has almost a combined 400 touches his rookie season alone on an offensive line that's shaky at best. I think it's going to be a lot of wear and tear at running back that's just going to burn him out into like one season, basically. Do you see Najee Harris getting 400 touches combined this season?
Ooh, they might have to. I mean, they might have to give Najee Harris a lot of the pressure because does Pittsburgh really have go-to receivers this year. I mean,
they have Deontay Johnson, who's a good football player. Chase Claypool is a good football player, and then they drafted George Pickens in the second round, the kid from Georgia. We'll talk about him in a few minutes. They also have Anthony Miller on their roster, who was good in Chicago before they traded him to wherever they traded to Houston last season. He didn't really pan out there, but he was good in Chicago for a hot minute.
That was with Ben Roethlisberger, though. I mean, if you have Mitchell near the ball, I'm kind of not too confident in Mitch Trubisky.
I think the reason they brought Anthony Miller in is they hope that rapport that Anthony Miller and Mitch Trubisky had as Bears, maybe they can find that magic again.
Yeah, but with that being said, though, I mean, Pittsburgh tends to be a running style offense, anyways. So I think Najee could get a lot of carries this year. He could end up really being the workhorse because Pittsburgh has to find some kind of balance. Now the question is going to be less on Najee Harris, and it's going to be more on the offensive line. Can the offensive line hold up to kind of give him the running room, give him that space to run? Because I'm not bragging or nothing, but I had Najee Harris on my fantasy football team, which happened to be first in my league in one. And you're
not bragging?
Not bragging at all. But he was first, and he did pretty well. But he did get a lot of pressure on him last year, and it's going to be hard to maintain that if like you got no light and he's going to get banged up.
Their offensive line is rough. None of them. They made some quality signing for agents. We'll talk about him. James Daniels, same. Their tackles are kind of both the kind of works in progress. Ever since what's his name retired, and then the other guy left, and then their center is ever since the Policy brother retired. This has kind of been an offensive line that's been very patchwork, and they have Villanueva as the other guy that used to be on this team that's no longer here. This is it's just not a good offensive line, and they have not done a good job addressing it in the draft at all. It's the reason that like Najee Harris, I think he was like the number one running back to get hit behind the line of scrimmage last season, and it's because this offensive line stinks.
Yeah, you feel bad for him because I don't think Najee's a bad running back. It's just
no. I think he's really talented. I mean, he went to Alabama. I'm pretty sure he won the Heisman. So yeah, the guy has talent and he can really play. But I think he's going to have over 400 touches. I think they're going to want to take the football out of Mitch Trubisky's hands. They're going to want to have Najee Harris, who's a trusted running back who doesn't fumble a lot, run the football and keep shorten games and keep and allow this defense that should be still elite, even with Joe Hayden leaving and some other notable pieces of the defense departing. So let's talk about TJ Watt. So he came really close to breaking the single season sack record a season ago. Do you think he gets that record this season? Just a quick reminder, that record is, I think, at 22 and a half, set by Michael Strahan, I think, in like 98?
Oh, to repeat that? Like, what did he have last year? What was his total last year? 20.
Hold on. Got you.
Because I just want to get I always like to get the numbers straight, just because. But it's gonna be hard to repeat.
Yeah, he had 22 and a half, so he tied the record last season.
22 and a half. Ooh.
Yeah.
I personally, I don't think so. I think it's going to be very.
That includes he missing 2 games last season.
It's going to be rough to repeat. I mean, it's so hard to kind of.
I mean, he's getting better every season. I mean, he went from 13 sacks to 14 and a half to 15 to 22 and a half. Like his production has been amazing, and he hasn't benefited. He had like the last 2 seasons, he hasn't had anybody on the other side of that line to really generate pressure on the other side. And I mean that's not going to change. I mean, Larry Ogunjobi's on the other side. He's not really a pass rusher. Alex Heisman, neither is he. So it's going to be TJ Watt or bust basically for edge rusher, and like he's proven that he can get pressure no matter what the situation is. I think he could break the record this season.
Really?
I don't think it's out of the question.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that he's. I don't think that he. It's not a possibility, but it's just for me, like you said, if he's the only main pass rusher on that team, all the focus is going to be on him, and for me, it's hard to kind of replicate that, especially with Pittsburgh having so many issues, and who they're going to focus on. TJ Watt's going to be the main focus. I mean, he was amazing last year.
I mean, the other thing is like I expect this Pittsburgh Steelers defense to be on the football field kind of a lot, and so they actually give him a lot of opportunity to get sacks. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
it could, but it could also be a reverse effect. What if, what if it just it does a lot of wear and tear on TJ Watt, and it just, it does the reverse effect and causes more issues, because the more you're on the field, you could get more sacks, but you could also get more prone to being injured because, you're getting the crap beat out of you because the offense ain't doing their job. And if you're expecting to win, 17-10 games, it's not going to happen, so, there's a both sides to the two sides to the coin. It could happen, but I personally don't think it will. But I'm not saying I wouldn't be surprised if he did, because him and his brother, when his brother was healthy, is very talented. Like when he was drafted, I remember going, "Wow, man, I wanted Green Bay to get him." I'm like, please, please come to Green Bay, come home, come to Green Bay. Because his brother, like I said, when he's healthy, can play. He can ball out, but that's all. The only thing that's been the issue with his brother's health.
Yeah, I mean, his brother won 3 Defensive Player of the Years. Yeah, for sure. Let's move on from. I think that record will fall. I think TJ Watt breaks the record this season. He didn't play 2 seasons last season, or 2 games last season. If he plays 2 games, the games he missed, he breaks the record. Last season, that record is broken last year. I think he does get that record, and I think that'll be the end of it. Moving on there from the draft. So in the first round, they took Kenny Pickett, quarterback out of Pittsburgh. They took George Pickens, the wide receiver who can fly, out of Georgia. They took DeMarvin Leal, defensive end out of Texas A&M. There was a time during the early draft process, DeMarvin Leal was a top 10 prospect. They get him in the 3rd round. Kelvin Austin, the 3rd wide receiver out of Memphis. Connor Hayward, fullback out of Michigan. Mark Robinson, linebacker out of Ole Miss. And Chris Oladukan, quarterback out of South Dakota State. I don't really know a whole lot about him. I'm not really sure why you would take 2 quarterbacks during this draft with all the uncertainty at your position, but that's what they did. Let's talk about Kenny Pickett. So, Kenny Pickett basically gets to play his pro games where he played his college football home games, because University of Pittsburgh plays at whatever they're calling Heinz Field now. So what do we think about Kenny Pickett going to the first round for the Pittsburgh Steelers, a team that has needs that more than just the quarterback position that they didn't address in this draft, like offensive line at all?
Well, that's true, but with Pittsburgh, I think that the Steelers, how do I say this? The Steelers should have focused on quarterback maybe earlier. Not. I mean, don't mean earlier as.
You mean like a few years ago? Like a few years ago?
Yeah. A few years ago, they should have actually maybe went. Ben Roethlisberger might actually retire because he's getting old. But of course, as stupid as they were, they didn't, and they decided to go elsewhere, and they decided to build for now, and they kind of bit them in the ass. It bit them in the ass. Now, is this a kind of a? I don't know if you think this is kind of a I don't want to say a panic pick, but
I do think it's a panic pick. I think Ben Roethlisberger retires on. They look at their quarterback room and Mr. Trubisky, who's probably is one of the bigger busts in NFL history, and then they had Mason Rudolph, who they clearly don't like. They're like, yeah, we need to get a quarterback. And let's just take Kenny Pickett. He's the most pro-ready quarterback, so if we have to start him this season, we can. But I don't think his ceiling is all that high. Like, I don't think his ceiling is higher than Malik Willis, who went like 5 rounds later. I don't think his ceiling is higher than even the kid from North Carolina that went, in the 5th or in the 3rd or 4th round.
So if it was you, would you start him right away, or would you sit him?
I would sit him. I would roll with Mitchell Trubisky until either the season becomes over, or you just realize that, hey, we're not going to be able to be competitive. So let's just play the rookie and find out what we got in him. Because if the season goes really, really south, I mean, they could be looking at taking a top 5 pick this year. And do you think about taking one of those kids from like the kid from Alabama, the kid from Ohio State, even though you took a quarterback last year in the 1st round? Yeah, I think I would.
I definitely would sit him too, because I think you got to kind of play it by ear and just go, well, if the season's bad, just figure it as a rebuilding. I mean, just
Yeah.
naming off some of the draft picks that you just named off, it's obviously a rebuild draft. Receiver, center, so they went line later, and then they went receiver and quarterback early on. They're obviously trying to rebuild that offense to try to compete with
Well,
Cincinnati,
and they never really
Cleveland.
they didn't take a single offensive lineman in this draft. George Pickens is a really good football player. He dealt with some injuries while at Georgia. That's why his draft stock fell a little bit. But 6'3", this dude can straight
Oh,
up.
I thought they did. I must have read it wrong. I must have said DB.
And then
They addressed some needs then, but I mean, obviously, then the issue is going to be the line and I don't know if they're going to.
I know Connor Hayward is Cameron Hayward's brother, but taking this kid at the 6th round when you have other needs outside of a H-back and tight end, it makes zero sense whatsoever. Like, it makes no sense whatsoever. This is a bad draft. Like, it just is. Like, I do love their first like their George Pickens and the DeMarvin Leal pick. I think both of those picks are really well done. DeMarvin Leal is a steal in the 3rd round. A steal.
Well, it's not horrible, but I mean, it's not one you're going to get a high grade. I agree. You don't if you have offensive line problems, unless you're my team, and I'm throwing it out there, and you've had luck drafting offensive linemen later on. You better start drafting linemen and build from the line back. And if you're not doing that, then getting Pickett's not going to do anything for you because he's going to get the crap beat out of him if you throw him in there, early in the season, or where you throw them in week 14 or 15 if they're not in contention anymore and they're, if they only won 4 or 5 games, then you're really, really risking this high pick now that you just got getting hurt. And that's the and I hate to bring it up, but that's the Bears situation. That's what everybody was worried about last year with Justin Fields. Don't get him hurt early because if you do, it could really affect his game. And if you do that, people are going to look at this and go, well, now you're set back now because Cincinnati's got a hold of this division right now. And then Cleveland's just, I think, a quarterback away.
I 100% agree with you, especially since you knew going into this season that you're probably going to run the football a lot, right? And so, like, why wouldn't you want to bolster up your offensive line to improve your chances of being successful in the running game? You choose not to do that at all. This is a bad draft. I think they have 2 good picks in this draft that I really like. I like the George Pickens. Everything else, I'm not a fan of anything else they did in this draft. This is like a C- draft in my opinion. Like, it's just not a solid draft. Like, it's just not good manipulation of the board. It's just not good.
I agree because, I mean, you should kind of take from other teams and draft those linemen. And a lot of people kind of question, the linemen when you draft linemen because it's not the sexy pick. But when you draft linemen and you can draft a lineman that's like maybe a versatile lineman that can play guard, center, tackle, and they can kind of move them around the line and you can get a couple of really good offensive linemen, they can really build your team up for years. Look at Baltimore, when the Ravens did that, and they went to the Super Bowl in the early 2000s.
Every team that's basically gone to the Super Bowl has had an offensive line that's been excellent. I mean, Tampa Bay's offensive line a few years ago. The Rams' offensive line this past season. I mean, that's building in the trenches is how you be a successful football team, and it's just not good. It's just not good. It's not a good draft. It isn't. Moving on from the draft, let's talk a little bit about their free agency. So notable additions: James Daniels, offensive guard; Miles Jack, linebacker; Mitchell Trubisky, quarterback; Levi Wallace, cornerback, who previous of Buffalo; Mason Cole, center. Departures, obviously, Ben Roethlisberger, Juju Smith-Schuster, and Joe Hayden, who's still unsigned, who could potentially come back to this team, which I kind of expect him to eventually be back on this football team. But I just put him there because right now he is unsigned, and he was their best corner last season. To have him not on the roster right now, semi-concerning.
Yeah, I kind of think the Miles Jack one was kind of an interesting pickup.
I love Miles Jack. Like when he was coming out of the draft process out of UCLA, and when he was in that Saxonville, like it was a good player.
Yeah, exactly. He just played unfortunately in a really bad team overall. I mean, I don't want to say.
they had one good season, and like it all just the wheels just came off of it completely.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just because they just got no offense. I mean, they never could build an offense. It's just terrible being on it. But I'm glad he got away from that situation because at least if he can be on a team where Pittsburgh is known for being a defensive team, they've always been defense first team. So if you come to Pittsburgh, it's the perfect place to build your resume to learn. I don't know how well they're going to do overall because, like I said, the offense is going to be suspect for a while. But that's going to be kind of to be determined if their draft picks work out and if they can kind of start to either draft offensive linemen or they can start going to free agency next year and start getting offensive linemen or maybe free agency this year and start seeing if they can pick and choose some guys that can kind of
you could make the exact same argument with Mitchell Trubisky. So like obviously his Chicago situation wasn't exactly ideal. You hope that like when he went to Buffalo, he was able to learn some stuff from Brian Daboll and Josh Allen and how to be a successful franchise and how to be a good quarterback. And you can take someone you learned from Buffalo and take that into Pittsburgh, a franchise that is, if they're good, they're going to love you there.
Well, yeah, but with Mitch Trubisky, the only thing about Mitch is, if you don't know how to read defenses, I mean, you should have known that when you were in high school playing quarterback. If you don't know how to read defenses now, it's going to be kind of trouble for you. But I think he should be a little bit better, being that the coaching is a lot better. The coaching is a lot better than it was in Chicago. Buffalo has really good coaching too. But he wasn't going to get the opportunity. He was never going to get any kind of starts. It was kind of more or less just a backup for Josh Allen, a safety net. But they really never needed a safety net. Josh Allen was, phenomenal.
He was a borderline MVP candidate. But when I look at their free agency haul as a whole, I actually think they did a pretty damn good job. Like Levi Wallace is probably going to be their number one corner. They needed somebody like that on their team. He really stepped up when Tre'Davious White went out last season for Buffalo. Levi Wallace actually had more snaps at corner than anybody else in Buffalo last season. Miles Jack, if you can get what he was a couple seasons ago, I think this is a really good free agency. Like as much as I hated what they did with the draft, I think they did a great job in free agency and roster shakeup.
So what do you think about the Juju loss, though? I mean, are you kind of like a big loss, or is it?
I mean, that's why you drafted George Pickens in the second round to be your Juju Smith-Schuster. First of all, Juju Smith-Schuster missed like all of last season, and this is something TJ talks about all the time. He hasn't been good as the guy. Like he's been okay, but he hasn't been like you expected him to take that leap and become the guy there, and he just hasn't.
Yeah. Well, maybe he's just not the number one. I mean, that's a case in with a lot of teams. They project the guy as a number one, and then that guy ends up being, so, and you go, well, maybe he's just not. Some people just can be that number one guy, and some people are just, built for being a slot receiver. Like I'm never going to see Randall Cobb as a number one because Randall Cobb is always going to be a slot receiver because he just cannot play that number one all around, Devontae Adams.
I tend to agree with you on that. I think the Kansas City Chiefs are going to find out if Juju Smith-Schuster can really play the one. I mean, also it has a lot to do. Maybe Big Ben's arm has been like dead for like 3 seasons, so maybe he just couldn't make the throws to like really, make Juju Smith-Schuster a valuable wide receiver in the National Football League. So I guess we'll see what happens. I like what they did in free agency. I think it's a pretty solid job. We'll see what happens. Let's talk about
Well, I was going to say, just really quickly, I honestly think it's all the court cases, maybe signing all those papers in court, maybe Big Ben, kind of having a bad arm, his shoulder was hurting a little bit. Hey, he's got to stop going on people's court and getting convicted of all this stuff and stay out of trouble. But anyways, we just want to throw a little jab. Sorry, Pittsburgh fans, but we're Joe.
Moving on to the schedule, let's talk about the first game of the season. They go to Cincinnati, a team who appeared in the Super Bowl as the AFC representative. They go into Paul Brown Stadium into Cincinnati. Do they beat the Bengals in Cincinnati?
Oh, I think, to be honest with you, I think Pittsburgh's going to be one of those teams where, see, I'm 50-50 on if they can get a win against Cincinnati, just because I think defensively they might be able to hang in. But do I think they have enough offense to put up numbers to kind of go pace, go touchdown for touchdown with them? I'm gonna say loss. I'm gonna say loss.
I think not only do they lose this game, I think they're going to get swept by Cincinnati. They have no chance against the Bengals. The Bengals they addressed their major problems in the offseason with their offensive line. This is a team that's going to be extremely good next season. Then New England comes into whatever they're going to call Heinz Field now. I don't remember what it's called. I don't really care right now. Let me see if I can look it up. I got it. Acrisure Stadium. That's what they're calling Heinz Stadium now.
Acrisure Stadium. So they just went worse.
Yeah. So I'm going to continue to call it Heinz Stadium until Heinz Field until otherwise. So New England comes into town. Do they beat New England?
No, I think they'll start out 0-2 in the season. It's going to be probably one of the worst seasons they've had. So Pittsburgh, don't look for a lot of wins for me. I'm going to kind of be hesitant.
I tend to agree with you on this, except for I think New England they get beat by New England. I think this Pittsburgh team is going to struggle this season for sure. I think their offensive line is going to be a hole they're not going to be able to just mask and hide. I was
going to just say quickly too. I just think the offense is going to not keep up in a lot of games too. There's going to be a lot of games like against Cincinnati where it might end up being 27 to 10 because just they don't have enough offense to keep up, and the defense is just going to kind of stay in for a while, stay in the game for a while, and then just eventually bend and break.
I agree with you on that. Week number 3, they go to Cleveland to take on the Browns. I imagine this is going to be Jacoby Brissett as the starting quarterback of the Cleveland Browns. Nothing in the rhetoric has made me think that Watson's going to play before week 9, or if he even plays this season. So Jacoby Brissett lines up as the quarterback of Cleveland Browns, but I do think that'll be enough for Cleveland to win the game. I'll take Cleveland to win in Cleveland.
I do too. I think Cleveland's defense and their running game is really going to pound. They're going to pound the ball, and they're just going to be too much for them. They're going to pound the ball and play really good defense, and just no matter who's the quarterback for Pittsburgh.
I agree with you on that one.
He's going to get beat up. He's going to get beat up pretty bad. Cleveland was nasty last year on defense. Even as a fan of my team, I don't want to see them. I don't want to see Cleveland's defense. I'm like, no, not that front line.
Moving on from there, we go to back-to-back games in the AFC East. First, the Jets come to town, and then the Steelers go to Buffalo. Do they win at least one of those 2 games?
I think they beat the Jets, but Buffalo is way too good to beat Buffalo. Oh man, I slated an L for Green Bay against Buffalo because Buffalo was that good, and playing in Buffalo, it's a tough place to play. So they'll beat the Jets because the Jets are still
the Jets.
I think the Jets are still the Jets, and they're still one of the worst teams in the whole AFC, not just the division. So yeah.
I agree with you on that. I think, the New York Jets are still the Jets. And I think until I see something intangible out of Zach Wilson, I can't really pick them. Buffalo, when I did the season preview for Buffalo, I had them going 16-1. I did not expect – I had them losing to the Rams and sweeping the rest of the schedule. That's how good I think Buffalo's going to be next season.
Wow.
Then they got 2 games back-to-back in the state of Florida, or at least against teams in the state of Florida. First, Tampa Bay comes into Heinz Field, and then they go to Miami into Hard Rock Cafe Stadium. They're in South Beach. Do they go against 2-0 against the Florida teams, or do they split this or get swept by the Florida teams?
Oh, man. See, that's tough. I'm not a very big Tua fan in Miami. So I'm really split on the Miami one. I think they'll lose against Tampa. The Miami game could go either way. I think the Miami game could go either way, but I'll give them an L, but that could also be a win. I think they could go into Miami and beat Miami because I don't think Tua's shown he's been the guy. I mean, I know they upgraded at receiver, they've upgraded at some key positions, but for me it's tough. But
I necessarily disagree with you. Until I see Tua do it in the National Football League, it's hard to really bank on it. But I think they've done enough with their roster on offense, with the offensive line and the running games and the wide receivers that they added, to make me believe that they can beat the Steelers team. So yeah, I'll take them. I'll take actually the Steelers to lose both of these games. I think they get pounded by Tampa Bay, no matter where that game is played, and they think they go to South Beach and lose. So I got them at 1-6 going into Philadelphia, taking in their in-state rival, Philadelphia Eagles and Jalen Hurts. Do you see Jalen Hurts pulling off this game and pulling off a virtuoso, or do you see Mitchell Trubisky getting a little bit hot, beating Philadelphia Eagles in whatever they call Lincoln Financial Field?
This is what I like about this. Is what's intriguing about this game. See, I've heard the Jalen Hurts arguments on here, which is very not arguments, but very interesting conversation. There's some people that are for Jalen Hurts, which is I think Izzy. Yeah. I don't remember if you were a Jalen Hurts.
I'm somewhere in the middle. I'm not as hardline as TJ is. I'm being completely out of Jalen Hurts, but I do see the flaws in his game. That's for damn sure.
But I think Pittsburgh is an overall better team, or not Pittsburgh, but Philadelphia.
It wouldn't surprise me if Philadelphia had like the best defense in the league next year.
Yeah, and that's exactly the reason why I think Philadelphia can win, because Philadelphia offensively might not like be oohing and awing you, but defensively they might be really good. So defensively is going to keep them in the game, and I just Jalen Hurts is just. It's really hard to pick them, but I think Pittsburgh, for once in this rivalry, might actually get probably pretty beaten up in this game. They might actually get blown out in this game.
I agree with you. I think Philadelphia is a bad matchup for this team. I think their defensive line and their offensive line should be really good this year. Philadelphia is going to be good. Going into after the bye week, the New Orleans Saints come to town. You expect Jameis Winston to still be the quarterback of the New Orleans Saints. You expect Michael Thomas to still be on the roster. They've loaded up on offense and defensive side in free agency with New Orleans, but basically no cap space. Do you think they beat the Pittsburgh Steelers, or does Pittsburgh beat New Orleans at home?
I think they take another loss. I'm also not a Jameis Winston fan. I think Jameis Winston's kind of he's one of those quarterbacks that's a good kind of a fill-in quarterback. I don't believe he's a quarterback that's going to be your future, but I think he can do enough on offense. And overall, the Saints are enough. They have enough on offense, and they've done enough to be obviously a better team than Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh right now just doesn't have a lot of clear weapons on offense, and they're defensively they're going to be really leaning heavily on them to kind of keep them in games. So
I think the other thing to factor in here is that this is coming off the bye week, and if the Pittsburgh Steelers are at 1-8 going out of their bye week, Kenny Pickett is for sure seeing the field in this game. So it'll probably be his first start in his career in the NFL. And I think New Orleans, you take that defense, which is a really tough defense. You got the Honey Badgers there now. You got Demario Davis is one of the best linebackers in the league. Like, it's just not a recipe for success against a really good defense, making your first start ever. Yeah, I think Pittsburgh gets smoked, and I think Kenny Pickett has a bad day. 1-8 going into a home game against the Cincinnati Bengals, where I think they dropped this game too. Cincinnati's on a roll. I expect them to be the best team in this division. They beat Pittsburgh. They're at 1-9. Going into 1-9.
And right now they're probably looking at their schedule at this point going, well, we got to get a couple of wins here and there, because they could be picking way top of the draft. They could be number 1 or number 2 in the draft by this point.
True. So, the problem is that they have a really difficult schedule. Like, you look at the schedule they played the first 8 games. Like, the only game that's like a game that I think they can legit win is the Jets game. Like everything else, like New England playoff team, Cleveland, who knows? Tampa Bay playoff team, Miami was over 500. Philadelphia Eagles were a playoff team. Cincinnati was a playoff team. Buffalo was a playoff team. Like, that is a tough schedule in the first 8 weeks of your year. And then you got New Orleans, who would have been a playoff team if James Winston doesn't get hurt. You get Cincinnati. Yeah. I mean, and then after Cincinnati, you go to Indianapolis, who has, Matty Ice now, and you have to play in the house that Peyton Manning built. And I think you take another L. I just can't imagine them going into, whatever that stadium is called. It's totally escaping me right now. But going in there and beating the Colts, I just can't.
Yeah, I agree, because, like you said, just look at the overall AFC and their schedule. It's tough. you just break it down just to the division. Even with Cleveland not having a quarterback, they still have a really good running game. They still can play really good defense.
They haven't had a single game against Baltimore yet. Like
exactly, and exactly. And I didn't even think about it. They still haven't played the Ravens yet, and they're still not even almost. They're almost half in the schedule, and they haven't gotten but one win, and that's against the lonely Jets. I mean, right now, Pittsburgh fans would be probably out drinking and praying to God that hockey season's going to happen because they just they're going to be god awful, probably the worst they've ever been. I would have to look it up to see when's the last time the Steelers had.
I mean, Mike Tomlin's never had a team without a winning record, so.
Mike Tomlin's going to be in therapy after this year.
He might get fired. I think they get off the schneid the next week. I think they go to Atlanta. I think in the Mercedes-Benz Superdome or Metrodome, whatever it's called. I think they beat the Atlanta Falcons, so they get a victory there. So they're at 2-10 going into. Do you have them beating Atlanta, or how do you see that game shaking out?
I got them beating Atlanta just because I think Atlanta right now they're also in a rebuild too. I mean, Matty Ice left. They're pretty much relying on. Who's their quarterback again?
It's going to be Marcus Mariota, but they drafted Desmond Ridder to potentially, do something there. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, Marcus Mariota.
I think Atlanta's a few years. I think Mariota is just kind of a placement guy till the next quarterback goes in. He's always been kind of the placement guy, and I think Atlanta's at a point right now where they're going to be on the bottom of their division, also rebuilding and also trying to add pieces slowly to their team. I mean, they've added pieces in the draft, but they're not good enough right now. Pittsburgh ends up getting another win, but that's two. I got two for them.
I got them at 2-10 too. Since we both have them at 2-10, let's just take these last 5 games all together. So they have 2 games against Baltimore, 1 at home and 1 on the road. They go to Carolina, and then they have a game against Las Vegas in Heinz Field, and then they finish off the season with Cleveland in Heinz Field, whatever they're calling it now. How many of those games, of those 5, do you see the Pittsburgh Steelers winning? 1 of 5, 2 of 5, 3 of 5, 4 of 5, 5 of 5, and which ones of those games do you see them winning?
I see them winning a big fat 0. They don't win another game on their schedule. Look at the schedule. Read those teams off again. They're not beating Las Vegas. Okay. They're not beating Baltimore twice. And then who was the other teams?
Carolina and Cleveland. I think they beat both of those teams.
Carolina and Cleveland. They aren't beating Cleveland. There is no possible way they're beating Cleveland. And Carolina, as bad as Carolina is right now, Pittsburgh is awful. Pittsburgh is going to be awful this year.
Don't be a hater, man. They for sure beat the Carolina Panthers. Come on, dude.
They're for sure. I wouldn't be for sure for anything right now because they could have, like you said, they could have a rookie quarterback, and they're not rookie quarterback. The poor soul is probably thinking, I just want to do anything.
You're going to have Baker Mayfield or Sam Darnold being the starting quarterback, or PJ Walker being the starting quarterback of the Carolina Panthers. Come on, dude.
Baker Mayfield is so, but I mean, he's better than any quarterback right now on the roster. I mean, would you take him or Mason Rudolph?
I'd rather have Baker Mayfield. That's not close.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, come on now. And then Mitch Trubisky and him. I mean, it's not like Mitch Trubisky's going out there impressing anybody. Mitch pretty much sat the bench. He pretty much sat the bench last year, and before that, he lost his job to a. So who did he lose his job to? Was it Justin Fields?
No, he lost his job. No, he lost his job to Nick Foles.
Nick Foles. He lost his job to Nick Foles. Old Nick Foles. The guy's been 50 different teams. It seems like. I mean,
he has been on a lot of teams.
It's just sad. I mean, I'm sorry, but I have no confidence in Pittsburgh winning any of those games. It's going to be god awful, and it's going to be like 2-15. They're going to be probably drafting number 1, and they're going to be drafting God knows what, because they drafted a quarterback this year. So maybe they'll draft offensive lineman. Maybe they'll draft.
They could take the kid Will Anderson, the kid from Alabama, who probably would have been the first overall pick if he was eligible last season. So, but yeah, I have Pittsburgh at 4-11 or 4-12 or 4-13. to wrap up the season. And this, I think that's the worst record I have put into one of these reviews. I didn't have, so yeah, I think it's for real. I think this Pittsburgh Steelers team is going to stink. I think Mike Tomlin could be out of his job after this season because he's been a little bit thin ice the last couple of years. He kind of saved his job a little bit for making the playoffs last year, but people in Pittsburgh are expecting more out of this team than being 4-13, or in your case, 2-15. If they go 2-15, he's for sure getting fired. Like, there's no chance.
Yeah, there is no chance he's keeping it. If he keeps his job at 2-15, then somebody should be talking to the commissioner and asking them what the hell is going on in Pittsburgh, because there is no way you should be keeping your job winning 2 games. But with that being said, I kind of wonder, like, looking ahead, who could be released next year and maybe picked up? I'm just throwing his name out not because he's an old coach, but there's kind of a thing going on in Dallas where they're kind of, you know how Dallas is, you know how Jerry Jones is in keeping coaches. If you're not a yes guy, if you're not a me guy, he kind of gets rid of them pretty quickly. And if Dallas doesn't have a good season this year, maybe McCarthy's from Pittsburgh. He's from the Pittsburgh area. Maybe Mike comes.
I'm not sure that's an upgrade over Mike Tomlin. Like, I'm not sure there are a lot of coaches that is an upgrade over Mike Tomlin. Like Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin's a top 5 coach right now. Like, for sure.
Well, not if he goes 2-15. If he goes 2-15, there's going to be the teams that want him. But don't get me wrong. But
if they fire Mike Tomlin, he'll have another job like that.
He will, but he might end up in Jacksonville or somewhere. Like, not saying Jacksonville, but a team like Jacksonville where
every year they come out like 7 coaching openings every single season. If the Pittsburgh Steelers fire Mike Tomlin, he'll have one of those jobs. You just have to pick which one he wants, for real.
Well, I mean, let's not say Mike McCarthy's not horrible. I mean, he did win a Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers, but I mean, like I said, Pittsburgh. Maybe he goes to Pittsburgh. I don't see what other coaches you think is going to be out there that are they going to hire through college? You think they're going to try to find an old college coach that will come to the NFL? You think
I think if the Pittsburgh Steelers hire a new coach, they'll get somebody who's already had NFL experience. They won't go the head coach. They won't go the college route. They'll like try to see if they can pry Harbaugh away from Michigan, maybe.
No, Harbaugh ain't leaving. Harbaugh is not.
If the money is right, if the situation is correct, dude, if you get an opportunity to coach the Pittsburgh Steelers, dude, I think you take that chance.
Harbaugh is under contract right now. There is no way he's breaking that contract with Michigan.
Contracts are meant to be broken, my friend. But hey, let me know down in the comment section what you think the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to do this season. Where do you think things are going to be pretty grim for the Pittsburgh Steelers? Team that made the playoffs last year, but they had no planning about their future, and this is what their rest is going to look like in the next year. Let us know down in the comment section. Also, please like, share, and subscribe to Prime Sports World. We are going to be back here on Friday morning-ish. We'll be doing a crossover episode with TJ Hopkins. And then Sunday, we are going to be doing the Cincinnati Bengals season preview episode. You don't want to miss that content. David,
that'd be good.
Thank you very much for joining me here on the show, man. I very much appreciate you.
No problem.
Thank you very much. And David, what do we do here at the Prime, my friends?
We bring the heat.
Yes, sir. We bring the heat. Let's go.
Every day, all day. Keep watching, everybody. Let me plug you for a bit. Keep watching, everybody. Watch. This is a great podcast. This is a great to watch. They go all out, man. They go all out. And I will watch that Cincinnati one. I will hope I can jump on just to do the Bengals one as well, because I think the Bengals are going to be a very interesting team to talk about. They're going to be one of the best teams. They're going to be one of the best teams in the AFC. So, we might see a Buffalo Cincinnati AFC Championship game. That would be interesting.
It would not surprise me in the slightest if that is the end result. But yes, please like, share, and subscribe. We will see you guys on Friday. You all have a good rest of your day and stay safe out there. Peace out, guys.
Peace out, guys.